Okay, we'll play one more clip of this, but listen. It's gotten so bad that at the end, he deteriorated to where it was almost it's like you were watching his soul leave his body. That's how bad it got in this interview.
If you were to continue to run and be officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if you have another performance on that on that level?
My butt's been wiped.
I don't plan on having another performance.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Gosh.
I don't plan on having it.
You could see his soul leaving his body. Hey now, everybody. That was awkward. Hey now. Hey now, everybody. It's Andrew McLean. It's John Bird.
Hello.
It's Tony Gump.
Hello.
Back in the studio. Hey, everybody. By the way, new wardrobe for John Bird and I both.
Yes.
That tattoo he was going to get right there.
Yeah.
On his
Don't
T-shirt.
tread on me, baby.
You want to show him the pants, too? You proud of those?
Oh, yes. I got those at Kohl's.
We'll never get him back in the middle of the shot.
Look at these.
Yeah. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful.
We're not selling hot dogs today. Huh?
No, we don't want
You mean kielbasa's?
We don't want to testes to slip out.
Oh.
And I've got a new shirt. As
Yes.
you see, this is the man's signature.
You had to one-up me.
It was Donald Trump. Thank you, Amazon. I never thought about it before, just going to Amazon and searching Trump shirts. But now's the time to do it since the ticket is set.
They got a ton of them.
You got, you know who your nominee is. All you DeSantis people and all you Nikki Haley people. We can quit pretending like this wasn't always going to be the outcome. Here we are. Y'all get aboard the Trump train. 'Cause as a matter of fact, they put out their first ad just moments ago. Their first ad since...
Yes.
Is your phone not silenced?
Tony, do something with your phone. My gosh.
Oh, sorry about that.
This is a professional podcast.
As I was saying, since the ticket is set, Donald Trump has his man, his vice presidential pick, which is J.D. Vance.
Yes.
They have put out their first official ad of the general election campaign, and let me tell you, this thing is going to give you chills. All right, want y'all, everybody, quiet on set. Watch this right here.
Trump has left the building. Over.
We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency.
What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down.
We have a president who actually fulfilled the promises he made during the campaign, securing the border to foreign policy.
He now has a record as president that's pretty damn impressive.
Breaking news out of Palm
The
Beach,
FBI
Florida.
has executed an unprecedented search warrant at President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The former president has both sides of the political aisle up in arms.
Dangerous and unstable moment in American history.
The Justice Department has just indicted former President Donald Trump.
7 years. They hated him. They targeted him. They hunted him.
This is the epitome of the abuse of the prosecutorial power to preempt political decisions.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way, and I will never be moving. On November 5th, 2024, justice will be done. We will take back our country, and we will make America great again. America will always rise to every challenge and overcome every danger.
Donald Trump seems to always get stronger when challenged. These types of things, I think, give him strength.
When I'm reelected, I will totally obliterate the deep state.
As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail.
Oh, man.
Goosebump City, man. Woo.
Yeah, it's chilling.
Wow. That's good, man. That's good stuff.
Man.
This is, I cannot say it enough. This is the most well-oiled machine of a campaign, of a politician that I've ever seen in my life. Completely changing the entire landscape. Completely changed it. And there's a lot of people that don't understand that. There's a lot of people that still view this in the race and politics and everything else the same way they were viewing it in 2016. It's a different ballgame, cuzzy. This ain't your grandpappy's politics. This is a whole new ballgame. And thank God a lot of people have woken up as to what's really going on. A lot of people have opened their mind to stuff that some of us in this room have been really on the lookout for this stuff longer than others. But in reality, a lot, I would dare say, most Trump supporters realize kind of what big picture is here and like taking things seriously and not just dismissing this as some sort of crazy conspiracy or, just throwing these ideas to the side, knowing that anything's possible and nothing is as it seems.
Yep. I mean, the past 3.5 years, I mean, you think about it. I thought about when when Biden took over, I just thought about, okay, it's just 3.5, 4 years. I mean, how much damage can he really do? Oh, my God.
You're right. I think I made a good analogy the other day, and I'm sure y'all heard this, or you may have been on vacation, but it was Biden's not running the show. No, everybody knows that. Biden is not in charge. So who's in charge? Well, people you didn't elect, people that you didn't even have the opportunity to vote for. And these are people that aren't seasoned leaders. They're not trained leaders. They just happen to end up calling the shots for the country. So if you work at a place, you work at a company, small business, and your boss has to take an extended vacation for 6 weeks, and he doesn't have an assistant manager or anything like that. He just tells one of the employees, hey, you're in charge. Well, that employee's never been in charge, never run a company. Your boss leaves, and then that guy's trying to call the shots, and he don't know how.
He has no clue.
He can't do it appropriately like the boss did because he doesn't have any leadership skills. And then you get animosity from other employees that are like, well, you're on the same level that I am, so why are you telling me what to do? And then you get all this infighting. That's what's going on in the White House.
Yep.
Because there's no guy at the top to direct the band to say, this is happening here, this is happening here. That's why Kamala Harris walks around and does. When Kamala was the border czar, she didn't do anything with the border because she was like, what's this old man going to tell me to do? I ain't doing that. Nobody's listening to anybody. And that's why there's so much chaos. I just made that up.
I don't think any president's really been in charge since like JFK or Eisenhower. Maybe a little bit of Reagan, but I think it's always been a group of individuals above.
Yeah, there is. I mean, when you take a step back and look at the whole thing, it is puppetry going on some level of a a person, whoever is president, is doing the bidding for an entity larger than them at the end of the day. When it comes to major decisions, when it comes to war or, whatever, like that's usually not at the president's discretion. They're being pushed in the direction of you need to make the decision this way.
Now, do you think there has been a president or presidents that weren't aware they were being manipulated?
It's a good question.
You'd have to go back a long time. Teddy Roosevelt fought the system a long time ago, but even Reagan had to give into a lot of things just to, stay alive, if you want to call it.
Well, and when you think about it, I mean, the guy that was not listening to other people or that entity, they hated him. They hated his guts. That's Donald Trump. And now we know that they were willing to go all the way to get him out of the way. And again, we don't have proof that this person did it or this person. All we know is the shooter did it. That's all we know. But we know there's a bunch of questions around it. There's a lot of coincidences around it. And nothing makes sense. Nothing about this would convince any average person that this was just a 20-year-old lone wolf that just happened to be able to pull this off.
Yeah,
nobody believes
that.
The
deep state would never have anybody as president that they couldn't control from here on out. There's just no way they would let that happen.
And so now, let's hypothetical say that this was that entity, deep state, whatever you want to call it. They were finally making the call. He just got to go. And so that happens. They miss, and now they're trying to cover up their tracks, which is why none of the answers make sense. Because it'd be a much different conversation if it were successful. If they were able to get rid of Trump, God forbid, they would be covering up in a different way. People would be more worried about civil unrest than they would be, give me the answers to how this happened. Because at that point, he's dead. You can't undead him. And so everybody's looking at moving forward and not looking to what happened because you can't change it. Well, he made it. Now we want to know what happened because we don't want it to happen again. And they've got no answers. No answers. I've been obviously steeped in this stuff with the shooter and everything else for days. And I keep seeing videos pop up where they're going back to that town and they're talking to people that went to high school with the guy, trying to get an understanding of, who he is or whatever. Here's one guy, I guess this is Fox News, talked to this kid. He went to high school with him. Here's what he said.
I brought up the fact that I'm Hispanic and, I'm for Trump. And he said, well, you're Hispanic, so shouldn't you hate Trump? And I was like, no, he's great. I mean, he's a great president. And he called me stupid or insinuated that I was stupid. He's like, well, that's kind of stupid. If he was a know-it-all. So once again, if he was passionate about something, he would just talk and acted like he knew everything, especially politics related. And he would say it in a tone that was like, I'm better than you in a type of way. And, meanwhile, it's like, dude, we're in the same classes. You know what I mean? We're talking about the same stuff here. And whenever it comes to politics, I mean, at the end of the day, I can agree, you can disagree, I can disagree. We're not even nothing about it. At that point, it doesn't matter. At that point, it's, we're just starting to figure out who we like and all. But, yeah, he was real smug and arrogant whenever he was talking. And whether that was his way to try to make friends or be funny, I don't know. But it got under my skin a lot.
He's lucky he didn't get a Mexican ass whooping from that dude. So here's another fascinating aspect of this is what has the FBI told us? They've investigated. It took them a minute to get into the shooter's phone and get to the bottom of. They were looking for the motive,
right?
And they say till this day they have found no motive. What does motive mean? Motive means motivation. What was his reasoning for doing it? They say they can find nothing on his browser history at his computer at home. Nothing about making bomb-making materials, as they found that in his car and at his home or whatever. He had detonation devices and all this kind of stuff. And with motivation, if they found a bunch of political stuff he had been searching or looking at, that would be the motivation. But they're acting as if they never found anything even like that.
But did they do a deep scan of his computer or just a cursory?
No, I'm
look?
I'm sure they did a deep dive, Willie. But it's.
I mean, if he's intelligent enough, he can wipe that drive.
Yeah, that's true too. But
he can.
With the history of these investigations and the FBI, the trans shooter in Nashville, what's another one? Some of these school shootings, like what do they do? We got a manifesto. We got whatever happened. Like, why did this person do it? Well, we don't know. We can't find them. The manifesto of the trans shooter in Nashville, they would never release it. Because why? Like, we want to know what was the motivation. Well, we don't know what it is. This is another example of that. And it's like, why are y'all continuing to hide stuff on this front? There's a reason. Is it just simply you don't want to put anything out there that would benefit Donald Trump? What is it? Just tell us. If you're not going to tell us what you found, just tell us why you won't tell us. That's it. That's all we want to know.
They just got to keep the narrative going of what they have control over.
Crazy.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to. Gosh, man, I could say so much. I'm so worried. We need to do just a Rumble show on this because I'm going to end up going down MK Ultra and everything.
Yeah,
else.
we got to be careful with what we say on this episode.
I guess I do. I want to go. What would I call it? MK. Sure. How would I pig Latin that? Can you pig Latin what starts with a U?
Latruyu?
MK Latruya.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're not going to do that. Outside of the shooter himself, I don't want people to miss the fact of how close this was. And we've seen different angles. On one of the last podcasts, we showed a computer image of how close that bullet came. Here's footage from, this is allegedly what you would have seen from the shooter's vantage point. Now watch this. You can watch the tilt of his head right before the shot.
Oh my God.
Look how close that is. Just keep looping that, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it was that split second of him turning his head to look at that chart is the only thing that saved his life. That gives you an idea of how bad it would have been had he not turned his head at the last second.
That's a kill shot right there.
Yeah,
if he doesn't turn his
absolutely.
head.
Yeah, and wasn't he looking up the illegal immigration stats when
Yes.
he turned his head? So the illegals got him saved.
Yeah, thank you, illegals.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for coming in such large numbers and providing us that chart because you just saved our president. Wow. It really puts it in perspective. And I'm going to be honest, every time I think about it, watching the video of it's one thing, but like when I physically think about how close that was, it almost makes me a little nauseous. And obviously, I think we can all agree divine intervention played a big role in that. Like, there's no doubt. If you are a supporter of Donald Trump and you would have been devastated by his death and you don't believe in God at this point, like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Because there's no other explanation for how close that was. There's a lot of people, and probably people in this audience, that have had near-death experiences that they attribute divine intervention to, throughout their life, childhood, whatever. You may have had instances, Tony Gup. That's one of those. And you usually don't have those at 80 years old.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, usually if something like that where you require divine intervention happens at 80, they just say, yeah, you go ahead and take this guy. He's at the end of the road anyway. But Donald Trump, man, I hear the media act like he's the luckiest man alive because somehow he evades jail and he evades the Russian collusion and he evades this and he evades that. He's not evading them. He's just simply under attack. And
I'd be willing to bet everything I got he knows who was behind this.
Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If he doesn't, he will. If he becomes president, which scares me because it will make them that much more desperate. So why they don't want him in there in the first place is because they're afraid he will find out. So why they raided his house. They thought he had some of the Russia collusion Crossfire Hurricane documents.
Yeah.
So a lot of this does go back to we got to keep Trump's nose out of this business, because if he lets the American people know, we're exposed. And I think that's where a lot of their fear comes from.
He needs like the Trump-mobile, like the Pope-mobile has. He just needs to go around in the big bubble that you can't penetrate with like tank armor or nothing. You know?
Are we going to be able, if when he becomes president, are we going to be able to talk him into something like that if he's riding in a car?
Yeah, I beg him. Please. I even said in the aftermath of this on Saturday when we went to the radio, I said, don't do any more rallies. Like, I understand. You don't have to. You don't have to do any more rallies. Like, I don't want to risk it, so just don't do any more. But it's like, he's going to do them. And as a matter of fact, it was announced today that Saturday, which marks 1 week since the shooting, he is doing a rally with J.D. Vance in Michigan.
Unbelievable.
1 week after being literally shot. And knowing the threat he's under because of how all of this played out.
That's crazy. And Biden stayed in his basement the last time and still won somehow.
I was talking to Leland as I left today, and he said what Trump needs to do is when he gets in there, go ahead and just ditch Secret Service, hire your own security that you pay very well, and let that be your new Secret Service while you clean house everywhere else.
Well, this is why JFK had his brother as the Attorney General, because he couldn't trust anybody else.
Yeah.
But still, look what happened to him, though.
Oh, right, dude, that's true. And it's not even like that the Secret Service are bad people. There's so many good people in the Secret Service. I would dare say a majority. But those people are also taking orders from somebody that's not the president. Even though the president is the protectee, somebody else is directing them on what to do, which is this Cheadle lady. Who's obviously
clueless.
Oh
my God!
She got the job because she's buddies with Joe Biden. She was an agent herself, but her previous job she was working for Pepsi in some sort of security role, and it's like, and her name's Cheadle, which sounds like Cheeto, which I think is a Pepsi product, right?
I'm not sure.
Cheadle almost got the Cheeto killed.
Is there a connection there? And
Maybe
plus, I don't like Pepsi. So there.
You don't? Are you a Coke guy?
No.
Mountain Dew?
Yeah, but that's Pepsi.
Busted.
Darn it.
Busted.
Well, I can say this: just the fact that they keep changing their story about what happened and all that stuff, they're scrambling at the top. I guarantee you that.
Well, you just look at the circumstances surrounding. There's a video floating out there right now of the kid just standing outside the fence during the rally. I mean, just standing there for. Here's a video. This is an hour before the shooting. That's him in the bright colored clothes, in the tan clothes. Watch. He's just walking around, just obviously scoping it out. He's just perusing.
Oh my gosh!
Trying to see what the place looks like, while everybody's sitting there patiently waiting to see Donald Trump.
Maybe he's looking for a signal of some kind from someone.
Oh, that's a good point. But look at him, man. How creepy, how morbid is it to see this dude scoping it out?
Man, he's just...
And again, politically motivated. If we're just talking about this guy being a lone wolf, you heard the friend talking about how he was a know-it-all and he knew everything about politics. But
the thing that just amazes me is it was so obvious. And you've got a rally attendee that noticed.
You got many.
None of the Social Security. None of those old guys
That's
with
why
guns.
they didn't see it. They were with the Social Security office.
That's it. None of those old guys with guns could see it.
So here's this. Remember that there was a police officer that climbed up, saw the gunman, who then turned his gun on him moments before the shooting happened. The police were stationed inside the building that the gunman was on top of. Somebody was tipped off, or a police officer saw a ladder that looked like it was out of place and climbed up that ladder, stuck his head over the top of the roof, saw the gunman saw him, so his reaction was drop back down. And then after that, it's too late because the fires are being shot. The rounds are being fired off. Mm-hmm. And so as far as the cop seeing the shooter, the last cop seeing the shooter, I think it's too late at that point. Like, you should have seen him well before that. There was reports that he went through one of the magnetometers and had a rangefinder on him. Do you not look at that and say, what do you got a rangefinder for? Like, it's just so many questions. There's actually local officials from Butler County, and I don't know exactly who this guy is. I think it'll tell us. But he talks about that instance of one of his guys who got up on the roof or stuck his head over the top of the roof and saw the gunman. Listen to this.
Did in fact see an individual on the roof with a weapon.
He saw the shooter?
He did.
Your officers are on patrol. They hear that there is a suspicious person on the rooftop. What did your officers do?
So our officers in the area started to converge on the building. My understanding is they did a full perimeter walk of the building. Weren't able to see up on the roof. Two of the officers went to what appeared to be the lowest point from ground to roof. One of the officers actually boosted the second officer up high enough for him to grab hold of the roof. When he was able to pull his head up over the roof, he did in fact see an individual on the roof with a weapon.
He saw the shooter?
He did.
And what did the shooter do?
Turned towards him, had the barrel of his weapon pointed at the officer.
At that point, the officer's hanging on to the side of the roof?
Yes.
Unable to pull a gun out?
Unable to
defend himself? Unable to reach his radio?
Any of that, yeah. Strictly defensive movement for him to lower his head, duck, lost his own grip, right? Fell approximately 8 feet to the ground.
Wow.
That's a steep drop.
It's a good drop, yes.
Did he get hurt?
He did.
In that moment, did they realize there's a threat right now to the former president?
They did. So both the boosting officer and the officer that fell were both on the radio, indicating that there was an individual on the roof that did in fact have a weapon.
Who did they radio?
So there was a blanket tactical channel being
Everyone
used.
heard it?
Everyone that was on that tactical channel heard it, yes.
How much time between that radio communication and the gun being fired at the former president?
That I don't have that information.
Interesting.
Man. So the cop sees him, drops from the roof. He's hanging on 8 feet in the air, drops, hits the ground, radio, somebody else's radio, and the blanket tactical whatever went to, because you got to be in contact with Secret Service.
It's got to be immediate.
Other police, everybody knows at that point. But by the time he's doing that, rounds are being fired. And so I don't think that there's any, you can't blame any malfeasance on that officer that climbed up the roof, at least in that moment,
right,
because they did what they were supposed to do after that. But it was the lead up to that. He's walking around for an hour. He's up on the roof. People are yelling. And if he said that police were walking around the perimeter and looking for something but couldn't see on the roof, what about the Trump rally goers that were yelling, hey, there's a guy on the roof? What happened with that? And they were telling this directly to police or security, because they were saying, hey, Mr. Officer, there's a guy on the roof over here. He's right there. He's right there.
Where were the Secret Service sharpshooters?
They were on roofs behind. If you look at the pictures, there's a couple snipers on the roof behind Trump during the rally that seemingly had their rifles pointed in the direction of the shooter. Now, here's the kicker. Is there was, according to Dan Bongino, supposed to be a shooter, an officer on the roof where this guy was. Mm-hmm. And that was the plan all along. But that officer that was supposed to be on the roof where the shooter ended up did not show up.
That's right.
And I don't know if that means didn't show up at all that day or was out of position. But if Dan Bongino is right, and if I'm going to put my money on anybody with sources on this instance, it's going to be Dan Bongino, then they could have assumed that maybe that was a plainclothes officer. But at the same time, if you are a CS, a counter sniper, and you've got your scope on this guy, you can see that it's a 20-year-old with long hair dressed in civilian clothes and obviously not one of your guys. So I don't know. Every time I feel like I've got maybe a plausible answer, I throw it out the window because it doesn't make sense.
I mean, can there be that much malfeasance? I mean, can there be that many mistakes?
I just don't see how.
I noticed that the rooftop the snipers were on, the Secret Service snipers, seemed just as slopey as the one that the shooter was on. And another thing I'd like to add, from now on, all Trump rallies, I think everybody should bring binoculars and just be looking everywhere but the stage.
Yeah.
So that way we can do our own security.
I think
what a great idea.
Well, I think from now on out, everybody should bring a sniper to a Trump rally. And then we'll just have everybody point snipers at each other to make sure there's no malfeasance.
You know what? That's a great idea. Instead of bring your child to work day, bring a sniper to the rally day.
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
I think it's a good idea, actually. I'm glad I came up with that. I hope they give me credit, though, when they actually do that, because I worked hard to come up with that.
There'll probably be a disclaimer at the bottom of the video.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
Then comes out today. I feel like I'm firing off a lot of information, but there's really no other stories to talk about besides this one right now. Then it comes out today that the parents of this kid had been looking for him for hours prior, as if they had lost him. They had misplaced their 20-year-old. Early reports, and I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but it was something along the lines of he said he was going to go to the shooting range. And that's how he got the dad's AR and all that kind of stuff. But they're claiming that he was gone. They didn't know where he was at, and they were worried for some reason. First off, why are they worried? Was he having a bad day? Is he off his meds or whatever? But they were worried enough to contact police and tell police we're trying to find him and we have concerns. That came out during the show today. As a matter of fact, here's Harris Faulkner on Fox News talking about it when that news first came out.
Rally shooter Thomas Crooks' parents were looking for him in the hours leading up to the shooting. We're now told they eventually called law enforcement to report that Crooks was missing, and they were worried. And they also were told, those parents are now being cooperative now with authorities, but they gave them the heads up that something's going on with our son. We are worried. We don't know the texture or the details of their concerns. So in other words, well, were they worried that he had a gun? Were they worried? What were they worried about? Were they worried that he was going to try to attempt to kill a sitting president and then go ahead and assassin?
By the way, pause
an
it
assassin
right there. So that photo right there was taken by the FBI approximately an hour. Not the FBI, I guess the Secret Service. That photo was taken by law enforcement before the shooting happened. Maybe this is... I can't tell where he's at. He almost looks like he's on a curb.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this was... I mean, for all I know, that's a picture of him on the roof. I don't know. God. But that is in the moments leading up to the shooting. He was on their radar. The head of the Secret Service admitted they saw him and they were suspicious. And so when they went to make contact with him, they couldn't find him. And it's like, oh, God. Oh, God. Anyway.
Comedy of errors.
Enough of that. I just don't. I don't understand. I can't make sense of it. I mean, I can come up with the questions I need.
it just keeps leading to the same conclusion.
It's you want to know, it only gets even more dicey, and I don't know that it was the best idea to bring this up on the show, but it's so relevant that you can't help but at least put it out there, because I don't know if anybody else is going to put this out here. But we always say, when there's a big to-do, when something big happens, we joke around and say, hey, check out Nancy Pelosi's portfolio if you want some stock advice.
Yeah.
Like, just follow her lead, because she's got all the insider information, and that's how she makes millions and millions of dollars. When people that dabble in the market, when they know something big is about to happen that would crash a particular stock, they short that stock, or they sell that stock and they get out of it because it's about to dip. Right. They don't want to lose money. Everybody knows the basics of that. The stock DJT, which is the Truth Social stock, took a huge hit leading up to the shooting. And for no reason, nobody knows why, a tremendous amount of people, or not a tremendous amount of people, but a few people that had a lot of shares decided to short their stocks over the weekend before the shooting, because, and the only explanation as to why somebody would do that is they think it's going to dramatically drop. And why would somebody on a random Saturday in July think a stock's going to dramatically drop that's related to Donald Trump, especially when he's on fire, especially when
on the upswing.
He's on the upswing. Joe Biden is deteriorating before your eyes. What would cause Truth Social to just go ahead and sink? There was apparently some people out there that thought that was going to happen. Now, we can honestly say, I don't think it's Tony Gump's more of a stock guy than I am, but I think we could all agree that if Donald Trump took one to the dome and he was unalived, that his stock would have sank. Like, Truth Social would probably be done.
Right.
And that would cause people to lose a tremendous amount of money.
It would cause a lot of people to make a tremendous amount of money, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe a few people, but,
Yeah, a select group of VIPs, if you will.
Imagine that.
But
the very lucky ones.
You see that, and you're like, okay, well, what's the correlation? Who thought? You just want to find the people that shorted the stock and say, what was your reasoning behind that? Did you see something? Did you hear something? Did you happen to know a particular 20-year-old? Like, what caused you to do that?
Now, I can tell you this as a stock guy. The DJT symbol, it used to be DWAC, W-A-C, D-W-A-C.
DWAC.
The valuation was extremely high, so I could see people shorting the stock, but it's that last week right before the incident where they just really, quadrupled down, whatever you want to call it. It got out of hand to where it wasn't the normal shorting of an overvalued stock.
And there wasn't anything in the news cycle that happened that would cause people to say, hey, we need to sell more than we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bizarre
coincidence,
sharp decline.
Right?
Coincidence. You had another coincidence.
Yeah, and that sharp uptick right after the incidents was everybody buying to cover their shorts, so that's why it spiked up. Other people know that as they call it short squeezing.
Yeah.
To where they have to cover their losses when it starts going back up.
We need to turn Tony Gump into the Tony Gump day trader and have a separate YouTube channel for that.
Yeah. You'll lose all your money, don't
Would
you?
Y'all all be rich. Well, then once Tony Gump makes you rich, we'll set up a Patreon or a donation site. We'll just start posting our Cash Apps and Venmos, and then y'all can donate to the show.
There you go.
As we do. That's what Bubba the Love Sponge does. That's how they keep their operation going. They literally have an audience that will just randomly and regularly donate $10, $20, $100, just fire them off. And they got a pecking order. They've got like a ranking system, and you become like a VIP after you donate so much money. It's actually pretty genius.
That is pretty smart, and plus you're bypassing the YouTube tax.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Because they got to get their hands on some of that green.
Yeah, because you're already going to have to pay taxes on it.
Yep.
Cash App and Venmo they don't take anything from you. They just want you using their app.
Okay, here's the way I think that we should do it. Okay? Instead of depending on technology, which can let you down, and false currency, people need to donate gold bars.
He said false currency.
Yeah, gold bars.
So we want people, in order to contribute to this podcast, to donate to us gold bars.
Or gold doubloons.
Bullions.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, gold and silver are real money. Cash is just debt if you really want to get down to it.
Okay,
But
and
that's
we'll
a
have
different
silver,
story.
and you can do silver, but you won't be a VIP club member.
Yeah. Depending on how much gold and silver you donate, then you can move up to VIP. and
Right.
get
What would that mean though?
You would get extra.
Because they can't come here unless they're blindfolded and driven around in circles.
Well, no, we're not going to bring them here. We
Right.
may do an event offside at Lake O'Sherry or something, but we give them extra content. Maybe do like OnlyFans type of thing, where we send them a pair of your used underwear. Things like that. Just extra surprises. Maybe a mystery box where we just take different things and put it in there.
That's kind of a dark web thing, though, isn't it?
Fish Tank did that at the end of the last season. They took all this crap and it was literally just garbage out of the house and threw it in a box, and people bid on the box. People were so mad because when they got it, it was like literal trash. But they're
What
like,
did
hey,
they expect?
it's out of the house. It's out of a house that we trashed. But they got their box and they said, J.
Yeah.
We got to get back on. I can't wait for Fish Tank Season 3. I didn't like this one that they're doing now, which I think is over, Season 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a contest or something. I like a game, like a shoot-'em-up game or something. I didn't like it. I want them living in a house. I want to watch the...
Yeah, that's what's real.
Yeah. The Big Brother type
Yeah,
stuff.
they're reaching.
So, the stop. Another coincidence. How about another coincidence? The building that the shooter shot from was sold 4 months ago. And you say, Andrew, what does that mean? They sold the building. Big deal. The building was sold, and it was sold to another company that has ties to some weird places. Now, this is the article, but if you go down, I want to find this guy's tweet and read this off. Yeah, hit that show more on his tweet. Yeah, that'll work. And it says, appreciate all my followers' help with getting this out there. Zoom in for me a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I hope my eyes aren't going bad. That's not a good sign. He said, it appears the building owned by AGR International was just sold in March, approximately 4 months ago, and bought by Indicor Industrial Company. Indicor was formed in November of 22 from a portfolio of industrial businesses, including Roper Technologies. And Roper Technologies, per the Schedule 13G filed with the SEC, has ties to BlackRock.
Surprise.
It's extremely interesting to me that this company was sold only 4 months ago. It's also extremely interesting that there are ties to BlackRock, which raises even more suspicion because you go back and BlackRock has an ad with this kid in it. Now, okay, but BlackRock's got their hands in everything.
Oh, come on. That's just...
But what are the chances that BlackRock's got... Like, BlackRock's people have a physical tie to this kid because they were in his presence. They were in a class with him. And so, I don't know. I'm a believer that, if they want something done, they'll recruit somebody. And I say I'm a believer. I'm not saying that it's just something I assume is true. I know it's true. Because when you look at the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, the governor of Michigan, they still talk about that as if it's a real thing. But what happened was the FBI convinced some people that, were like slightly autistic or not quite all there to agree to kidnapping the governor of Michigan after providing them with women, drugs, and everything else. They got off the hook. They got acquitted because all of that came out. That is not something new. That's not some new tactic that law enforcement uses. They do that all the time. And so if they wanted to take that to the extreme, they could absolutely do it.
The only thing new about all that is we're finding out the truth with internet and this day and age. And Donald Trump should get credit because once he exposed the media as the enemy, all of it just kind of flowed out.
Yeah. Man, it's so deep.
Yep.
I didn't mean to be so serious on this podcast.
My head's hurting.
I know, mine too. But people are waking. You mentioned Donald Trump waking people up to this stuff. And when we say people's waking up, I mean people's waking up. The people that are middle of the road, that talk to average people who are ultra MAGA like us, or they're not, just kind of middle of the road politically, like Joe Rogan, they're talking about this stuff just like we are. And when that message is getting out to those people, like, that is an absolute game changer. I think this actually is Rogan's first comments on the Trump shooting since it happened.
Like, if he turns his head at the last second and the bullet grazes his ears, if he didn't, it hits the back of his head and he's dead, and then we fall into chaos, and who knows what the fuck happens.
Big chaos.
And then people think that the Biden administration had Trump killed, and then there's these questions, like, how the fuck does this 20-year-old kid climb on that roof 150 yards away and no one sees him?
Well, that one guy was pointing at him the whole time.
Yes.
He's like pointing to he's right there.
And they're yelling, he's got a gun. There's a guy in the prone position on a roof 150 yards away from the former president. The whole thing's nuts. The whole thing stinks of either incompetence or a design or we're in the Matrix. This is a fucking fake movie. It seems like almost to watch this, the most bombastic and manly of presidents, for a lack of a better term, to see him with these two female bumbling Secret Service agents, especially the one, to see that, to see everything happen the way it is, to see that they knew this guy was on the roof, to hear that guy had pointed his rifle before that at a cop. So the cop engaged him. He pointed the rifle, and the cop ran away. The guy climbed the roof with a ladder. You can see the ladder. The whole thing is bananas.
Yeah,
he's 20 years old, and then you find out he was in a BlackRock commercial. You're like,
that's me.
Is this the Black Mirror? Like, tell me what's going on. Is this real? Is this real? And then Trump goes golfing with a bandage on his ear the next day.
And then the putt, when he made the putt.
Jesus
Did you hear his quote?
No.
He said, that's the difference between me and the shooter. I don't miss.
Oh my man.
That's a real person.
And then now you have people flooding from the left being like, all right.
Yeah.
That's a good quote. I'll do this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's correct.
Man.
Oh God, I don't know.
It's so refreshing to see regular, normal, used to be liberal people seeing the light and coming around like this.
Normies are coming around, and I keep doing this, and I don't really have to. It's not that big a deal, but the Secret Service agents that were females, I had been saying since Saturday that one particular one that's really getting hammered with memes and stuff, she's the short, kind of stocky one. I had gotten word that she is a great, competent Secret Service agent. But the one video you see of her, they're getting Trump in the motorcade, and she's struggling to holster her gun. And so I came to the airwaves Monday, and I said, actually, she's a good agent. You just caught her at a bad time. They've got vests on. They've got wires for headsets and everything else. And Eric Trump came out the other day and said the same thing. He said she was on my detail while my dad was in the White House, and she is a very competent Secret Service agent. So I was glad to see him say that, but the damage is done because of that video. Obviously, Joe Rogan's talking, everybody's talking about it, making fun of her. I hate it for her. But at the same time, she's short.
That was the thing.
The other ones are short.
Yeah, shouldn't there be...
You got a height requirement.
But yeah, there's got to be a height requirement because, you still could see Trump over her head just as clear as day.
Obviously, we want that image of Trump pumping the fist.
Right.
That's almost a must in this situation. But if there had been an appropriate heighted Secret Service agent, he wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So kind of good that the female was there, but bad because he could have got shot again.
Right. It just proves it'd be hard for Barron Trump to ever run because who's going to cover that guy?
Nobody can match that guy. He's too tall. He's like 7 foot tall, which he should really play basketball.
No way. No way does he need to bother going to the NBA.
That's true. He doesn't need to go anywhere either.
There's not enough money in that.
He attended his first Trump rally the other day. I guess a week and a half ago, and I'm like, God, what if he would have went to the one in Pennsylvania and witnessed that? You know, I know the Trump kids and their spouses and his grandkids were watching at home, and they had to scurry their kids away, and cut it off, and then have no idea what would happen if he was okay or anything else.
Well, how long? I mean, how long in advance was this set up? Because it had to have been circled on their calendar if there was something, because it's outdoors, it's not indoors, and also I'm wondering, was this set up 4 months ago when the building was sold?
That's a good question.
Did they already know that he was coming there?
We need to know when, and it's months and months. I got to imagine that it's well over 4 months, because the last one I went to in Coleman, Alabama, was months and months and months ahead, pre-planned.
Right.
I would dare say 6 months, maybe, and I'm just guessing because it was so long ago I can't remember. But 6 months, and then 2 months after that, we're just using that as a hypothetical. Right. 6 months ago, or it gets planned for 6 months later, and then 2 months after that building sells. And again, I don't necessarily know if the building holds the owner of the building holds any value, because it's simply a perch for him. But
yeah, what was in the building? I know that police officers were in there, but what is the building used for normally?
It's some sort of business. What is some kind of glass company or something? I don't remember. It's used for shooters. Apparently.
We just have questions. That's all.
Yeah, just
simple questions. Simple.
And all the while, Joe Biden is running around, doing everything he can to give the Democrats an excuse to boo him off the ticket. And we don't want that. We want Joe Biden to stick it out. He was on BET today doing an interview, because he's lost so much black support. He's just doing everything he can. He was at the NAACP convention yesterday, and he was just all over the road, just mumbling and bumbling like bad. But today, he was on BET getting interviewed, and he says that if a doctor tells him he has a medical condition and he needed to step down, he would do it, and they're running wild with it.
Is there anything that you would look to, you personally, not anybody else, not other pundits, not even perhaps family members, that you would look to say, if I see that, I will reevaluate?
If I had some medical condition that emerged, if the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem. But I made a serious mistake in the whole debate. And
the whole debate.
And look, when I originally ran, you may remember it.
It was a big 90-minute mistake.
Candidate. And I thought that I'd be able to move from this, just pass it on to someone else. But I didn't anticipate things getting so
Here we go.
Divided. And quite frankly, I think the only thing age brings is a little bit of wisdom. And I think I've demonstrated that I know how to get things done for the country, in spite of the fact that we couldn't get it done. But there's more to do, and I'm reluctant to walk away from that.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
God.
He's in bad shape.
Hold on, Joe.
Just hang in there, buddy.
Come on, baby.
Yeah, that was actually pretty well spoken by Joe, considering the other interviews that he's done as of late. So this was Sunday. Mm-hmm. He had an interview scheduled with Lester Holt of NBC. And he had the opportunity to back out of that. Considering what had happened the day before with Trump and everything else, he could have told NBC, you know what, it's not appropriate time for me to do an interview, so let's reschedule. But somebody convinced him, no, this is a good idea, you go ahead and do it. Because his backside got saved by the shooting, because the conversation all the week before, I know you're out of town, but all the week before and even before that was Democrats have got to find a way to get rid of Joe. Who's going to speak out? Who's going to tell him he's got to drop out? And nobody would do it. There were no prominent Democrats that were willing to say anything, which, by the way, Adam Schiff out now saying Joe's got to go. But that was the conversation across the board. Then Trump gets shot. Everybody stops talking about Joe Biden. And so he was the winner of that situation, because the conversation has changed. the spotlight has been taken off of him. So instead of telling NBC, hey, let's postpone this, he's like, let's go ahead and go on TV and remind everybody that I'm falling to pieces. And it went exactly like you think it would go.
Have you taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced?
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says? Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I've not engaged in that rhetoric. Now, my opponent is engaged in that rhetoric. He talks about to be a bloodbath if he loses, talking about how he's going to forgive all the, actually, I guess, suspend the sentences of all those who
Same old byline.
were arrested and sentenced to go to jail because of what happened in the Capitol.
Do people really, really, really care about that?
No.
God.
Not to mention their hoaxes. You know, the bloodbath. Do y'all remember what he said? He was talking about an economic bloodbath.
Yeah, that's an actual economic term that's been used for decades.
Everybody uses it on TV. Democrats use it all the time. And now Joe Biden's like, bloodbath. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, let's go on to the next clip. It's this is Joe Biden again. Lester Holt. He is a bumbling mess, and it goes from bad to worse. And keep in mind, this is in the backdrop of Donald Trump being shot 24 hours prior, and he wastes no time to raise the temperature back up.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself. Basically, the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another debate.
Yeah, you're going to have one in September that's on the books. Would you be open to doing one in the next few weeks?
I'm going to debate him when we agreed to debate, and I'm going to debate him in September.
But if the opportunity came up to do one between now and then, is there a sense of wanting to get back on the horse?
I'm on the horse. Where have you been? I've done 22 major events, met thousands of people, overwhelming crowds, a lot happening. I'm on the horse. What I'm doing is going out and demonstrating to the American people that I have command of all my faculties, that I don't need notes, I don't need teleprompter. I can go out and answer any questions at all. And I stood there when NATO was in town. I stood there for an hour.
I'm on the horse, man. I'm sniffing his mane.
Gosh.
Come on, man.
He's on the horse, but he's like he's facing the other way or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. He's in the saddle
He's about
backwards.
to slump over like he's, well, I can say that.
And, it goes on. It starts to deteriorate more and more. Like, it does not get any better.
You were in Delaware when this happened. What was your first reaction?
My first reaction was, my God, look, there's so much violence now, the way we talk about it. I mean, the whole notion that there is this, there's no place at all for violence in politics in America. None. Zero. And we've reached a point where it's become too commonplace, not assassinations, but to talk about it. For example, the January 6th,
oh my
attack
God.
on the Capitol. Lester, I got in this race early on in 2020 for the 2020 race. I wasn't going to run again because I lost my son. I didn't feel, and
he's hitting all the high
what happened
points
in Charlottesville, Virginia. Those folks coming out of the woods with torches, carrying swastikas, singing the same Nazi bile. It was accompanied by this Ku Klux Klan, and a young woman was killed, and I was a bystander. And the then president was asked, what do you think? He said, they're very fine people on both sides. Not fine people on both sides. No excuse. Zero.
Okay, so we're 6 years after Charlottesville, okay, where a woman died because some jabroni drove his car into a crowd, okay, at that protest. It wasn't a mass, number of people wearing white hoods that came and brutally murdered her. She got run over by a guy, and there's questions about that. Was he trying to get away? What was going on? Blah, blah, blah. They're still, 6 years later, still talking about that. But this guy that got killed at the Trump rally, They won't talk about him anymore.
Nope.
There'll be that won't be allowed to be a Republican talking point of a crazed leftist lunatic killing a Trump supporter based on politics.
And that Charlottesville thing got debunked a million times over. Anybody that I've known that actually quoted that went back and looked at the actual clip and were like, "Oh, I was wrong about that."
Yeah.
Yeah, but how many things have been debunked, but they're still being spewed?
Yeah,
forth
they're
as
still
the truth.
repeating them. The Very Fine People hoax. It's still being repeated by Joe Biden and everybody else. But okay, we'll play one more clip of this. But listen, it's got so bad that at the end he deteriorated to where it was almost as it's like you were watching his soul leave his body. That's how bad it got in this interview.
If you were to continue to run and be officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if you have another performance on that on that level?
My butt's been wiped.
I don't plan on having another performance.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Gosh.
I don't plan on having.
You could see his soul leaving his body. That's how bad that one was.
Oh.
Man. Jeez, dude. I don't know, man. We've got a lot to do. I mean, you know, we get on here, we get on this podcast, and we like to have fun. I mean, the purpose of this podcast is to reach people outside of our radio audience and bring them in. By the way, if you are a consumer of this podcast and don't listen to us on the radio, you're really missing out. AndrewMcLeanWho.com. You can listen live from there. And so we don't always want to come on this podcast and do the same thing we do on the radio show, but this is such a dominating news story that there's no way to get away from it. There's no way. You can't do anything to... I mean, what else do we do? What else can we talk about?
You got to fight back any way you can, and this is a forum where we can help fight back.
And it's changing like every minute, every hour. It's on the show today. We find out that the DNC is going forward with the nominating process for Joe Biden by like August 1st. And so does that mean that they are conceding that Biden will be the guy? Which, if that's the case, if the Democrat Party has decided, or the DNC has decided, Joe's going to be our guy, they are doing one of two things. They're either, one, waving the white flag and say, fine, you got us this time, you can have the presidency. Or two, they've got a much more sinister plan to make sure that not just they win, but if they don't win, to make sure Donald Trump's not the guy.
They're not going to give up. They're not going to give up.
No. This is going to be the craziest 4 months.
But you know what?
American
If
politics.
that is true about Joe Biden, what a great early birthday present for you and I.
That's
my
that's
gosh.
True. If they do that August 1st, I'm the 5th, you're the 6th.
Yeah, wrap Joe up, and there's our present.
Look at that. Yeah, good stuff. We'll have plenty more. Depending on when you're watching this, the last night of the RNC is tomorrow. We are going to go live and cover that, Trump's speech and everything else. It's going to be our first kind of late night podcast outside of the time we did the New Year's Eve thing.
Oh, yeah.
I might wear my pajamas.
You can if you want. I wouldn't start off with pajamas, but maybe as we go along, change. Yeah,
okay.
That's a good idea. I want to say before we get out of here, and I'll let you guys do your final words, my sister is coming into town. She lives in Kansas City, Missouri, and she's going to be doing photos. She's doing like family photos.
She should
engagement.
do photos of us.
She could do photos of us. She actually wants to come on the podcast. I just don't know if we've got. And she wants you here, but I don't know that we can work it out time wise. So I want to figure that out. She's doing photos here in Guntersville, as a matter of fact. So if you're a fan of this podcast and you and your family or you and your wife or your husband have been looking to get professional pictures made in a very beautiful setting like Guntersville Lake, I want you to hit my sister up. Look her up, Abby McLean Photography on Facebook, and send her a message. She'll have all the info for you to do that. I just promised her. And it's going to be not this weekend, but the weekend of the 27th. So I promised her I'd get her some gigs. So y'all help me out. Help me be a good big brother. Anyway, Tony got final words.
Final words. First, it feels like we're in some kind of movie or something, like a high production movie, but this is on the side. I ran into somebody I hadn't talked to in 20 years. It's an old mentor of mine. His name is Scott, and I'm just asking for prayers for him and his father. His father has stage 3 dementia. He doesn't even know it's his son anymore. He thinks it's somebody he worked with. But I went back to my hometown, and I went back to the restaurant where I learned management when I was a young guy. And this guy showed me the ropes. He really taught me how to be a good leader in business. And I owe him a lot, and I just want to say prayers out to him and his family.
Absolutely. And that's got to be cool, running into somebody that had such a vital role in your life and who you are.
I could talk about this guy for a month. I got so many stories, and he also taught me how to keep the work environment fun, and you get better productivity out of that environment.
And drink your water.
And drink your water and eat your meat.
Yeah, drink your water.
Scott has the stamp of approval from us because he's got the stamp of approval of Tony Gump.
Love you, Scott.
John Bird, final words, my friend.
Yes. Tell you a short little story. I always loved Christmas morning. And this involves my Evel Knievel stunt cycle. And the morning that I got it, I was so excited. But my cousin that was visiting from another town took it from me. And he was going to take it back with him. But you know what? I went there. I kicked him in the stomach.
Whoa.
And I got it back, and I ran back in my house. And my mama said, nobody's going to ever take anything away from you again. My Christmas morning is November 5th. My Evel Knievel stunt cycle is Donald Trump. And nobody's ever going to take my Evel Knievel stunt cycle / Trump from me again.
Wow.
Impressive.
I love that. Donald
Evel
Trump.
Knievel stunt cycle / Trump.
Donald Trump is your stunt cycle.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Best toy I ever got. Best present I ever got.
God, we need to do a whole show on what's the best gift you ever got. I remember one of mine in particular was for Christmas. I was a big Power Rangers guy.
Yeah.
A saber, the White Rangers saber.
Yes.
I remember getting that and thinking that was just the coolest thing on the planet. I loved it. And I was probably a little too old to be watching Power Rangers, but, I was like 18. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how old I was.
Okay, good.
I just thought of something else I forgot to add. You guys know about my mother and how she died, the cancer, and how it affected. I wouldn't even know you guys, and I wouldn't even be in Birmingham, but Scott was the first guy I called after she died at 4:11 a.m. I called him about 4:30 and woke him up. Felt bad, but he was real, he was my boss at the time, and he really helped me out. I just had to add that. I forgot that.
Man, good
I'd like
stuff.
to add something, too.
Go ahead.
Can I add something? Last Friday was the 20-year anniversary that my mom had passed away, so it's the first time I've been able to be there with my family. Just tell Mama I love her, and I'll see her again one day.
Your mom probably watches this podcast. Both of y'all.
And she
moms.
laughs. She's up there
She's
just
like,
hemming and hawing.
that is my son every bit of the way. All right, man. We'll get out of here. Y'all make sure you watch our live stream. Subscribe, like, comment, and help us get this podcast off the ground. Until next time, see you, cuz!